My co-host has abandoned us, so guess it's time to talk about how Shrek is actually the Witcher. Shrek is a Witcher. We did this I'm very impromptu at Soapbox. I don't know if any of you have been to the Soapbox. It's hysterical. It's just like a place for you to yell for 10 minutes about literally whatever you want on your soapbox to an audience of variable size, probably under 10. It's also like the furthest point away from any other social activity, so you can really just go off on your soapbox, and the people who are interested in your rant can show up, and if they're not interested, well, they don't even need to go near that path. Except for the bathroom. There's a bathroom over there on the way. So we're gonna get started in like 3 minutes, but welcome to Folkwise. Folkwise is alive. Okay, I said 3 minutes, but he showed up really fast, so anyway.
Which one am I at?
You're going to be at this, or that one. Here,
This
move
one.
that over. But they can't see you. Can you guys see Dom?
That half the room, can I? Well,
Yeah, come here.
I gotta move the mic then.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You and I
We
can
share
share
a
a mic. We can share a mic. It'll only be like this for a sec. We can share a mic.
Kind of loud.
Wow.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Welcome to Folkwise live in person at MAGFest.
Woo! This is our first ever MAGFest panel and our first ever panel to an audience of primarily not folklorists.
That's true.
So welcome, thank you for being part of this first time event for us. My name is Daisy Allstone. I'm a PhD candidate at Ohio State University studying comparative studies, but basically that's just like the fancy word for I'm studying folklore and they don't know how else to call it that. I'm interested in lots of digital folklore as well as environmental folklore, and we'll get to like maybe a second about what folklore is and what we do on this show. But Dom, I think we have another introduction to make.
Hi, I am, do I get to say doctor?
Ooh.
I'm Dr. Dom Tartaglia, and I am a folklorist. Daisy and I host Folkwise. I am the state folklorist for the state of Florida. That means I'm like the state of Florida's official traditions recorder.
AKA the guy who knows the most about Florida Man.
That is true.
Definitely.
I've met him several times.
Yeah.
And I study festivals. I study festivals.
Festival,
in a
also
word.
food and festival. Yeah,
They go together.
They all go together. So we have this show called Folkwise, which is sort of a brainchild of 2020 where...
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
Who has seen an episode of Folkwise on Twitch?
Yes, our loyal fans!
Back of the room. You're in luck. You don't
Yes.
have to have seen a single episode before. We are just ready to play
Yeah.
and to talk.
So we host a show every single Tuesday night starting from 7 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/folkwise, where we talk about tradition non-traditionally. So that usually takes the form of us doing a 4-hour video game-based show where we invite a special guest who's a folklorist, an artist, a musician, somebody who's interested in traditional arts and culture in everyday life, and we bring them on the show. Dom and or I will play a video game together that's thematically related to our guest's research. So this could be anything. We played Zelda with skateboarders, for example. We've played lots of Witcher. We've played lots of Red Dead Redemption. We talked about
BeamNG.drive with a guy who studies Houston hip hop.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
he
So
loved all the cars.
we play anything from a combo. We play kind of a combo of like indie games and like big mainstream games. So there's some games that we play a lot, and then some games that we bring out just for a particularly special guest with a niche interest. But usually our show, we play about 2 hours of the video game with our guests joining, and they just kind of like notice and wonder about what we do. They use their folklore brain and their just regular person brain to be like, what the hell is that? Or they say like, oh my gosh, the embroidery on Geralt's like vest right there. I know what
you
that.
would find in Northern Europe between. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So they do stuff like that, or they're like, we'll play games with ethnomusicologists, and they'll like point out cool stuff about the music that are in video games and things like that. We cut the game, and then we interview our guests for about an hour. So what you are getting from us today is like a 4-hour show cramped into 1 hour.
Yep.
So we're gonna go real fast. Dom and I, of course, are the primary hosts of the show.
Fast! Yeah!
Yeah, we're doing a speed run today a little bit. So Dom and I are usually the hosts of the show, but we have a whole team of people who also help us curate questions for our guests, do research, they do outreach, they do our social media. So it's not just us. We'll get to more about that in a second. But today, we would love to welcome.
Oh, I was going to say we can welcome our.
Well, I was going to do it when we do the sleuthing thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't know.
Tell them that there's.
Okay, one of our mods is in the chat right now. Fan fave, Deathlorist.
The chat. It's the audience.
No, they're the chat. That's a new.
One of our mods.
The chat is the fourth pronoun. I just heard that was.
Fourth personal pronoun, chat. Yeah, Webster said that.
So,
Fourth
the wonderful Caitlin Kinney studies death folklore, among other amazing things, and works at a library. And this particular show, at the very end, you are all going to be able to get to ask questions of our very special guest, who we'll introduce in a second. And if you ask a question, Caitlin Deathlorist has mag points for you if you ask a fun question. So
good question. We got ones, we got fives, we got tens.
We got tens. Yeah,
ask
we got
a good question. See what happens. See how
what
many
happens.
you get.
And I guess without further ado, we are going to invite our special guest to the stage. Welcome, Dr. John Fenn from the Folklife Center at the at the Library of Congress.
Hey,
I'm gonna take this off. John,
yes, Daisy.
we should get into how this started, that you'd be our guest while Dom queues up the game, I think, right? Can you see this monitor?
I can, and I can see that.
You can see that one too? All right. Turn down over there.
Which one is it?
It's the little spinning guy? The spinning guy?
Oh.
Ooh. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. Okay, that's good. All right, so Dom has been practicing playing Metroid.
Oh, God.
So the way this usually works is Dom and or I are usually playing the video game, and our guest gets to notice and wonder, but we have Metroid on here, very special, because 2 years ago at the 2021 American Folklore Society conference, which is the basically largest professional society in North America for folklorists, and that's where we all go to do our conferencing. But we did an episode, or we sort of did a Folkwise live at the American Folklife Center, and we just like interviewed people on Rogue. Yeah, it was really, really fun. And John comes up to us and says, I don't even remember exactly what you say, but what I'm going to say I've interpreted and I've heard, and I misremember, is that you said, well, I don't know anything about video games, but I guess I'll talk to you if we can play Metroid.
I did say that. Yes.
And we were like, okay. And coincidentally, about 2 years later, and where we are now, the theme for MAGFest happened to be Metroid. And so we emailed John and said, we have a big idea. Would you at all be interested in attending this absolutely ridiculous convention with us if we could do Folkwise because it's Metroid? And you said, yes, I think, because you're here.
This is like work for me. This is great.
Yeah, so this is like a tax write-off for you.
I'm at
Yes,
work.
so
Billable hours.
business billable hours. So John, I guess while Dom is playing this game a little bit, tell the chat.
You are the chat.
The chat.
It's so good to see the chat.
Finally, I know. Chat. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is John Fenn. I guess Dr. John Fenn is they introduced me. I'm a folklorist and ethnomusicologist. Got my PhD at Indiana University. In this century. 2004, I think, is when I actually finished. I'm kind of a generalist. I did research in a small country in East Africa called Malawi on hip hop and youth culture, that's kind of, I was doing ethnographic work with youth there who were really into Tupac. And it was an amazing experience, really lovely. I have good friends there still from my time doing that. Currently, I do work at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. We were designated by Congress in 1976 as kind of the national, federal level folklife research center and archive. So we have the archive of folk culture there. We have about 3,400 discrete collections, most of them ethnographic collections documenting folk and traditional culture really from all over the world. Our name is somewhat of a misnomer.
Yeah.
That totals about 7 million discrete items that we take care of at AFC. The Library of Congress has 176 million items in its catalog. So we just have a little bit of it, right? And we do preservation of stuff. We also do presentations. So the team I work with does all the public programs that the Folklife Center puts on. That's like concerts, lectures by scholars as well as practitioners and traditional artists. We do symposia. We do our blog, our podcast series. Do a lot of sort of digital engagement, especially since 2020. You know, when everyone had to go home for a little while. So it's a lot of public outreach, and it's an amazing place to work. It is a dream job in many ways, and I've been there about 7 years.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's a pretty long CV list there. Yeah, so speaking of resources and cool shit, you helped us put together some of these tokens, or whatever these are, postcards? What are they?
Postcards.
I'm using like digital language because we're on here. Death Florist, why don't you go ahead and just like pass them down the roads that people want? There's a QR code to a link that takes you to a Google Doc that we've compiled a bunch of, Oh, first boss. Let's go, first boss.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. So, yeah, while you're perusing
Don't
this...
screw up, Tom.
Yeah, don't screw
I
up.
already did so many times.
So, I see the hand back there, too. We'll come to you in a second. But while you're checking these out, this is a QR code that takes you to a list of video game-related resources at the Library of Congress. Some of them are just fun stuff that they actually have. Like, there are some really cool photos of people gathering in the 80s with all of the fucking pinball machines just, like, outside under a tent. Like, that's pretty sweet. And then there's also some webinars available about how to preserve your video game collections or what to do with all that old stuff that you have, like all the way in the garage that's getting covered in dirt, you're resurfacing or going through your parents' stuff. So anything like that, we have some resources for. And of course, you can contact Folkwise for any of this in general, too. And our link tree is at the bottom. The QR code's there. If it doesn't work, it's also on Linktree that you can get it at any point. So that's available for you all.
And I'll just add what I learned in kind of prepping for this and looking for stuff at the Library of Congress is we've been involved in preserving video games for some time at the library. We have about 5,000 games in our holdings. Mostly have come in through copyright deposit, which is one way the library gets stuff. But they've come in through other forms of donation, and there's AV specialists across a couple divisions at the library who have really been working on preserving the consoles, you know, the machines, but also the games themselves, whether, you know, whatever media carrier they come on, and sometimes at the level of preserving the code too. So there's a really fascinating blog post on that link resource Daisy talked about preserving this code that was apparently lost to a game I know nothing about. I will just say I don't know anything about video games. That's not totally true, but
you know a little
really
bit. You know about Metroid.
You know way more than I
You
do.
know all. Okay, yeah, you know Samus, right? Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Speaking of this, Gum's about to. You just fucking crushed that.
And I've never seen this version of Metroid. I'm used to the first version. I played it in 1987 and 1988 very heavily on my younger sister's, you know, original Nintendo console.
Yes.
And,
Hey, why don't you whip out of your pocket something secret that you brought for a surprise for us and for all of you?
I brought my first ever video game, which was a Nintendo
Yes!
Game and Watch Parachute.
Yes.
That my dad brought back from Japan before they even released in the U.S.
Wow.
So I've had this since I was like 11.
Yeah. So obviously we were perusing the museum upstairs or around
I
the
had
corner
a blast
and
in
checking all that stuff
the
out.
video game museum.
Totally.
But yeah, I played Metroid quite a bit. This was my first year in college, I think, and my buddy at the time, he had it as well, and we would talk to each other, you know, on summer break and be like, "Oh, did you get very far?" And And I remember, and also in prepping for this, I found the original soundtrack online, and I've been listening to it a lot, and it brings back a lot of memories. And I know that the sound design of video games at that time was, you know, very limited, technologically speaking. But I guess Metroid was kind of advanced for the time, too.
Yeah.
And I remember the music so well. It was very sort of...
Okay, John, so I just killed the first boss, but it's kind of a broken version of the second boss. We're going to go in any of these kind of green, this kind of sound design tonal chamber.
Yeah, okay.
Anytime we're in a room like this, that means the second boss is stopping us.
Okay.
So you're about to
I think I remember those kind of sonic cues
Check this out right here.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
I have nightmares about that.
Yeah, that whistle is sort of creepy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And you know, one thing I learned about the first Metroid is the film Aliens was an inspiration for both the sound design and the absence of sound.
Yeah.
So it's like that claustrophobic thing. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool because I sort of remember that.
All right, now we gotta run.
So this is where you can't screw up again, right, Tom?
Yeah, exactly. So we did.
Do we all have to be quiet?
No.
Okay, good.
No. I actually, for people who maybe have never heard of the term folklore outside of either a video game, podcast, or maybe fairy tale context, it might be. Oh yeah, music context. Excuse me.
Or the guy in The Simpsons, the comic book, the comic store manager. He has a master's in folklore.
He says he has a master's in folklore.
mythology.
Yeah, he does. That's us. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what folklore is. So I define folklore, or at least the fun way to say it is that we're the keepers of house rules. We study the house rules of games. Yeah, so you sort of use house rules of culture. So like there's the stuff that happens in like really informal settings, or the creative communication that you do in your everyday life with people. So like jokes or any kind of speech or pick up guitar jam sessions or cosplay or fandom or art that you make about your favorite characters. Like all that stuff is folklore. But it's also things like baking and like archiving, and it's also recording music and recording the lives of people who want to share their particular traditional arts with you and all kinds of stuff. You probably have a better definition of folklore than I do, just because you've been practicing it for a long time.
I usually avoid defining it.
Oh yeah, we do too. I know. I hate to know that these are all like lots of different interpretations.
I think of it as like creative expression in everyday life. The ways we sort of let people know who we are.
Yeah.
And
Make meaning.
Whether that's
what's
through
meaningful to
material
us.
culture or verbal culture, as you said. Everything from slang to how we dress to the kinds of music we share or the kinds of stories we share. Folklore can exist kind of at the family level. If any of you think about family, whether it's birth family, chosen family, and the kind of ways you might celebrate things, whether they're birthdays or other events, like those are usually kind of traditions that we might develop or inherit.
Oh, what happened here?
God, Dom, you screwed up again.
Yeah, we gotta
I don't know what. Just kidding. Sorry. Save. Yeah, and so in the context of often what we do on our show is our guest will be thinking about how that might operate in a video game space. Although this game is very particular, so the folklore that we're talking about here is that a little bit of nostalgia, it's a little bit of music. And also just kind of being here and observing all of you all do folklore, because that's what we're all doing right now together is the stuff of culture. So if you didn't think that you were doing culture today or that you have culture, you do, and it's this. Yeah, hell yeah.
Doing culture, that's a good definition of folklore. I mean, as I'm thinking about Metroid and thinking about, sharing sort of hacks or the Easter eggs you might find in a game, like with a friend. That's like oral transmission of something that the designers built in to kind of express themselves, right? So I think there's multiple layers of this. And I will say that the discipline of folklore is
it's different than just the stuff you do. It's like I tell my students when I teach intro to folklore that I'm not going to teach you how to do or have folklore. You already have that. What I'm going to teach you to do is how to think like a folklorist.
Recognize patterns.
So recognize patterns, ask questions about culture in everyday life, but not that I'm not teaching you like how to play an instrument. I'm not teaching you how to cosplay. You're doing you're so close. You're so close. Damn. Yes! Oh my god. Yeah! That was so good.
Let's fucking go!
Fucking speed running right now. Yes. That was so good. Oh my god.
Man.
We've been practicing. Speed running.
This is very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, so like it's like this on the show, only all of you guys are quiet except for our chat that's just like going on stream. So thank you all for being here live. And of course, if you note, members of the Academy, if you know our chat commands, feel free to yell them out. We have a very robust chat folklore. So on our show, something that's really fun, bees! Oh my god. Yeah, here's some advice, folks in the crowd. Don't let your mentors get stung by bees like I did one time. Chat will memorialize you for it. So one thing that's really fun about Folkwise is that, yes, we're folklorists and we're part of video game culture, and we're just using sort of Twitch as a platform, kind of like PBS or kind of like public access television, except we're speaking to the lingua franca of the site, which is video games, to have these kind of educational conversations about folklore, or silly conversations. You can have fun while you're learning. I didn't mean to make that sound boring. Geez, sorry. But you kind of get to, this is a way to like decenter some of these conversations that we're having all the time away from academia, libraries, and things like that, and bring the people right to you. So like if you ever have a question about, I don't know, garlic in video games, for example, Mario, you can ask a folklorist who we have on the show about that thing, or whatever your specific niche interest in. I think one of our top videos on YouTube. So the way it works is we always clip out the interview portion of our streams. You can watch the VODs for 2 weeks on twitch.tv/Folkwise. We clip out the interviews and put all of those on YouTube. Is that, you giving us time? Cool. So when we do that, you can search people, search subjects on our channel, and you can find things you might be interested in, so you don't have to watch every single episode. But you should. It would be really cool. I mean, there's a lot of cool people on there. But the other thing that's really fun about it is that because we're folklorists, we're interested not just in talking about the folklore of other people, folklore in video games, folklore of ourselves, whatever, but we are co-creating with our audience folklore through the use of memes, through chat lore, any kind of like inside joke. All of that is folklore. So our channel at the same time of like illuminating some of the folklore in these other platforms is also making folklore together. So we have a community, like me saying the Academy. Those of you who know, that's how we call you. We call you all the Academy because we have an award show that we do, community awards annually, and our 2023 community awards is coming up the second week of February 16th on our show. Again, it's a Tuesday, always a Tuesday night. And we have a survey we send around on Google Forms, and anybody who ever watches our show and beyond can vote for their favorite past guest on the show, recurring a guest, favorite video game we played, favorite. Oh my God! You got it. Oh, that was close. God. Oh, okay. You got this. You got this. Checkpoint.
Deep breath. Tom.
Yeah.
Deep breath.
Never stopped me before.
Exactly. Yeah, and so we get to like co-create all of that folklore together, and then our chat, the community gets to vote on who they thought was really cool, who they want back on the show. We also have categories for chatters, like favorite chatters, people who are there, always dropping links of references that our guests make. Sometimes we make a book reference or a person reference, and you might not know who that person is, so we always try to make it as accessible as possible for you to feel like you can get involved in our community, who is just really interested in connecting people through a kind of creative expression in everyday life, because I don't know, we just need more enchantment in our world. we need more opportunities for creativity that exist outside of the exclusive con-based weekend. So if you're into that, come on our show. We've also done cosplay parades on our show. We did some of you are here who showed up on that show dressed up in Fire Emblem Three Houses cosplay when Engaged cosplay when Engaged came out. That was really fun. So we have folk artists on who bring some of that to us. It's just a great show. So. Yeah. I don't know, Dom, are you good? How do you feel right now? Are you just kind of like so focused and sweating like a lot? Palms are sweaty. Yes.
You got a charge beam.
Charge
Good
beam.
job.
Let's go. Okay.
Well done.
All right, now
is this
doors are gonna open up.
how you remember Metroid?
No, because it was
so
like
what?
8-bit. It was like. It was totally different. But again, the gameplay, being able to move in all these different directions and exploring places that all kind of look the same but have different things going on. Yeah, it's very. Yeah. I mean, one of the things about folklore is continuity and change. That's what folklorists. That's like our mantra, right? So things are the same but different. And so this is recognizable to me.
Yeah, that's great.
But I would have been dead 100 times already.
Yeah. We noticed that in the gameplay when we were first starting to play this to queue up for the show that speed is the name of the game. It is not so much defeat every enemy, but rather get past every enemy, which is not always, it's not the same gameplay as other games.
And it's fun how the game taught us. The game also, Metroid, a good example of a game that teaches you that, emergently. It doesn't say, hey, don't get hit. It's just, you realize, oh, I do better if I'm trying not to get hit,
Awesome.
I hate this guy, I'm just jumping, bye.
Yeah, get away from that. What are you doing? It's all just a distraction. They're just trying to distract you from the real... Yeah, exactly. Blow them to smithereens. Oh my gosh. Oh.
So, John, I'm backtracking right now with the chart scene.
Yeah.
And like the board is opening up because there's doors I couldn't get into now.
Yeah. That's like
You should remember that from
definitely
NES days. Yeah.
Yep. Is that what they're called? NES days?
Yeah, the NES
I like
days,
that.
yeah.
I know entertainment system.
My youth is reduced to NES days.
NES days.
Era.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm used to
Hell
that
yeah.
with my kids.
Yeah. I know, like, when we asked you if you wanted to come to this con, what did you have to say to convince your boss at the Library of Congress that you could go?
I told her I'd been invited to be a special guest on a panel at a conference.
Exactly. Yes.
A conference that is doing culture. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
this is
that's what's going on here.
They get it.
And I told her I'd talk about Library of Congress stuff, which we've done. So I've covered
We did
that.
it. We fulfilled the requirement. Yes.
I mean, one of the other cool resources that I found in doing this was,
Okay,
we have the Carl Sagan papers at the manuscript division of the Library of Congress, right? And in his papers, I found a video game treatment he made in like 1980 for a game called Contact. That was a book he had just published.
Oh yeah, that's on the resource list.
The game
That's
was
on
never
this,
created,
yeah.
but the document has been scanned and is online.
It's
so if you
on
go
a
to that QR
typewriter.
code- yeah, so
It's so
just
cool.
imagine Carl Sagan thinking about big, huge things, and he's like, oh.
He's like, video games
We
are
can
going to be
also
the
make
thing.
a video game to make my ideas accessible to a different
Yeah.
audience.
So cool.
So like that's the kind of cool stuff we have at the library that tells this story
Yeah.
that's both history and I think contemporary.
Yeah, totally. And that's like those kind of original documents, like I don't know about you all, but it feels different when you like see or hold. That's why the original item is so important for people. There's something about being in the presence of those documents that is really moving. And so especially when you're part of a video game culture or to see how large it's grown globally, it's pretty amazing to like see the little trail of how important it was or who was thinking about it at the time that it really was emerging and becoming its own kind of community. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we probably got like 1 minute. Then we got to do is some interview and some questions. So Dom is like speed running this like unbelievably.
Can I ask John a question?
Yeah.
What's your favorite MAGFest culture that you've observed so far in your day at the con?
Wow.
That's the only stumper.
I've taken in a lot today. I mean, the creativity that I've seen
Yeah.
expressed in literally
It's
every
amazing. Amazing.
cosplay I've seen, right? And that's not a world I come out of, or I haven't studied it, right? I know about it, but just some amazing creativity and the inclusiveness. Like everyone's having a good time. But I think the favorite part for me was like the media archaeology and kind of the old console museum space, right? That brought back some memories.
Yeah, it's both like a nostalgia trip, but also like a preservationist like trip.
Well, it was very tactile. Like when I saw the
Yeah.
Intellivision console,
Yeah, you were like, that's Intellivision.
I'm like,
that was so
I
cool,
remember
yeah.
the feeling of that controller in my hand. And I spent
Yeah.
hours as a kid playing Intellivision.
And I don't know if y'all have been in there, but they 3D printed
Like a new
new
controller.
controller, so you could flip it to the side. It's actually really cool. Where the other one you hold like a phone. So that was kind of
was
interesting to
training me
see.
to hold
Yeah, it
my
was
phone
training
all
you to
the
hold your
time,
phone.
right?
Yeah, that's how that happened. Yeah.
But I remember, and it brought back memories of just my own personal connection to video games and video game culture. I remember my parents saying, "Well, go outside and play." Like parents always say that, right? And I spent a lot of time outside. But I told them no. I was like, at one point, I must have heard on the news, right? I don't think I read this in the newspaper that there was a study that playing video games was going to improve hand-eye coordination, and I was telling them it's going to make me a better driver.
It did not make us better drivers.
No, so like I remember at the age of 13 telling my parents, like, I'm just going to play one, I'm going to be a really good driver, don't worry.
Yeah, don't listen to all
It's
the
the tradition, right, of teenagers.
Yeah, don't
convincing
listen to
their
all the
parents
I'm worried about.
stuff.
But don't worry about the violence in video games. It's about the driving. Okay, don't listen to that other stuff.
Yeah, there were
it's
like
gonna make me really good
this
at
was
tennis.
the most violent video game I ever played as a kid, Metroid.
Oh,
right?
wow.
All the other ones were like
How the table-
Pitfall. Like that's not violent. You just jump over crocodiles and stuff.
How it has evolved. How it has evolved. Oh, that was so close. Oh, yes, yes. Oh my God.
Cliffhanger.
We're so close. Oh. Oh my God. Okay. You can do this. Speed run.
Oh, no.
Everybody ladders in the chat for Dom's speed running. That's our sort of Is our like chat folklore for like Hype Train. We made this joke a long time ago when we first started playing Breath of the Wild together. And of course, Matt in the chat, our friend, collaboratively said everything is ladders because you can climb everything in Breath of the Wild, and we were able to defeat. So it sort of became our chat folklore as like a hype command, like everything is ladders, everything's possible, ladders in chat. You can do this, we're so freaking close.
Oh my gosh.
Spin to win, spin to win, spin to win. Okay, well, you're certainly leaping. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're... Oh my god, this is really intense.
My heart's beating.
I know, my heart's beating very fast. I don't think it's the panel, I think it's the speaker.
All right.
Yes,
all right.
okay, let's do this.
Fucking do it.
Okay, let's go.
Baby girl saw me.
Let's go!
Go, Samus.
Stop monologuing, Samus.
He never talks.
She's stalling.
She was very silent.
Stalling. Let's go. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, here we go, here we go,
Okay.
here we go.
Wish me luck.
Luck has been wished.
So one thing I do remember about playing Metroid is, for me it was like the process. I actually never finished the game. I don't think I've ever finished a video game my entire life. I don't have that kind of commitment. But it was that process of like going through and learning what, as Dom said, what the game was teaching me.
Yeah. Yes! Are you kidding me? Is it exactly 5:30 right now? We planned that. Oh my god. Dom practiced. Dom has never beat this game or those bosses
I
that
have never
fast.
got two Emmy evades in the same run ever.
That was amazing. Hell yeah. All right. Let's go. Dom, that was very impressive.
That was
very proud of you. That was dope. We are going to go ahead and just put this on pause and
Should I put like a screenshot up there?
Oh, you could if you want. Oh, put Folkwise or something. I don't know. Yeah, something up there. So normally in our show, right after we play the game, we do a little bit of a break where we run break ads and things like that, and then we come back in from the interview. But we don't have that today, so we're just going to jump into the interview, I guess.
Here's a break ad.
Here's a break ad. Break ad. John Fenn and Dr. Lisa Gilman co-authored this great book. So this is like evidence of your actual qualifications. Your name's on this book. Just want to make sure in case anybody was wondering.
And I think it's like 7,835,000 most popular book on Amazon.
Whoa, damn.
Take
That's
that,
good.
8 million tier.
But this is a kind of book. It's got a handbook for folklore and ethnomusicology fieldwork. This is a guidebook that you might use if you yourself were going out to record people, record audio. If you're going to like live events, you want to kind of document culture in everyday life. You may use this book. It's pretty up to date, a little outdated. Things move so fast. I'm just kidding. No, it's pretty good. Honestly, this is a great book. We use it to teach to our students and things like that. But we got some questions for you.
Okay, so
And if you've seen the show, you know what we do before we get into the questions. Daisy, do you want to do the honors?
If I didn't break this microphone? Yeah, okay. Yes, I would love to do the honors. So, some of you see Dom and Daisy up here. We are the ones who mostly appear on the show, among other hosts every once in a while, plus our special guests. But what you might not see are the people behind the stage at Folkwise who help us curate our questions, research our guests, use their special sleuthing powers, hopefully only for good for our show, because if it was terrible, they're so good. Sometimes our guests are absolutely shocked by the things that we come up with. But they are, of course, wonderful, dutiful, intelligent, detail-oriented, fantastic. Intrepid is usually the word we say. Folkwise interview sleuths. Wonderful. So if you hear a question that you like, don't thank Daisy and Dom, thank the interview sleuthing team, because they are just absolutely wonderful and make our show possible.
Subscribers get a sleuth emote in chat.
Yeah, sleuth emote in chat for subscribers. Anyway, let's go. I'm taking this off because this is like wiggly as all hell, so I'm just gonna hold it. Is that cool?
hello, Greg, tighten it.
Gonna get my heartbeat down after all that.
Yeah, just deep breath though.
John, first question for you. When you're recording AV out in the field, or you're doing field recordings, what kind of gear do you make sure to bring with you to support a manageable and efficient experience?
That is a quote
That's a, quote, manageable and efficient experience.
Yeah. I recognize it.
Wow, wonder who found that. Sleuths.
So I've been doing mostly audio field recording, since the mid 90s. So I've gone through a lot of gear. I usually try to bring not the latest and greatest thing, but the thing that I know how to use. Experienced folklorists and other field recorders, whether they're scholars or academics or just artists doing, the best recorder you have or the best camera you have is the one that's with you. And so lately, I've been bringing my phone a lot as backup. I try not to use it as my primary recorder, but I bring something that's affordable, that doesn't have a lot of buttons, ideally, or have a lot of features buried in menus. And I bring a nice microphone. I'm a big fan of audio recording. I don't do a lot of video. I do photography or audio recording in my field work for the most part. And batteries.
Batteries.
And I always bring a multi-tool with me too.
Oh, multi-tool.
So I could have tightened this if I had.
Yes. Right, exactly.
Always bring a multi-tool?
Oh my God. Yeah, always.
Batteries.
Yeah, batteries. Always
Power.
be charging your ABCs.
Yeah. And again, that
ABCs,
changes.
always be charging.
That changes so much, and now we can have the battery packs, right?
Yeah, we have battery packs, and I think that's true. I think the phone is, but particularly like late editions of a phone are really underrated. Like in terms, especially for our agenda, which is making the recording and preservation of the cultural practices that you do accessible. Your phone can actually be really sufficient, and you can just get attachments for phones too. That's a great tip. Yeah, thanks.
And always put your phone in airplane mode when you're recording.
Oh, I didn't think.
Because if it hits the network,
or
it'll mess up
it'll
mess up the recording. You'll get this weird digital noise in it. So always put it in airplane mode.
I'm so glad this is getting
That's the expert advice you come to panels at MAG for.
Yes. Hell yeah.
Next question, John.
Go for
So
it.
you've written about musical lifestyles or, quote, ways of living anchored in engagement with music, unquote. Could you tell us a bit about some of the people you've met over your career who are living these musical lifestyles?
Yeah, and did someone actually read my dissertation?
Yeah, we did actually.
Good Lord.
I didn't even read my dissertation.
Thank you,
The
Sleuth.
sleuths found your dissertation.
So as I said, I did my dissertation fieldwork in Malawi. I was there for 9 months, initially with my partner, Dr. Lisa Gilman. She was doing her dissertation fieldwork, and I went to just kind of help her carry gear around. And then I met all these kids who, like I said, were really into Tupac. One of them, his name's Gresham Mzomera. He still lives in the north of Malawi, and we became friends with his family and kind of stayed with them for a little bit. And he was my kind of entree into this hip hop world. And I got some great stories from him. I would walk into town with him often. It was about 6 kilometers from where we were staying, to go into town to go to the market or get food or just go hang out, see some of his friends before I started doing field work. And we'd tell him these stories, and one of them about kind of living in musical life. And he was really into to Tupac because of the song Dear Mama. Right?
That's a great song. Yeah.
And in the ethnic group he's part of, Tumbuka, it's very much a matrilineal group, right? So he had a special connection to his mom. But he would also say, oh yeah, we're gangsters, and they would kind of thug life kind of stuff. And I would ask him, well, yeah, but you're in a village. Like, what does that mean to you? He's like, well, John, he's like, I don't have a car. I don't have a gun. I don't sell drugs. So I'm not really a gangster. But I am, because I want to be independent and live life according to my own sort of desires and values.
Okay,
So he and his friends and a lot of other youths I was working with were kind of taking what little knowledge they had about, and mostly it was either Tupac or Biggie Smalls. Those are the ones they knew. There was no MTV in Africa at the time. MTV Africa launched 2 years after I finished my field work, and it wasn't even available in Malawi. It was mostly just in South Africa. So they didn't really have access to that stuff. He had a profile of Tupac that a tourist had given him that was like ripped out of Newsweek magazine. And he just kept it. It was like his Rosetta Stone.
Yeah.
And so he'd ask me questions like, what does that word mean? And so those conversations really kind of anchored my understanding of what musical life could be, and how the music that he was performing a little bit too, but it really meant so much to him. And it was a way of for he and his peers, both in rural and urban spaces across Malawi, to kind of not just express themselves, but to make sense of the world around them. And so that's kind of where I think how I came up with that sentence you weirdly quoted.
Well, it was fun. It was fun watching you see the jam session too, because I was thinking about other because I already knew what the questions were. I was thinking about musical living, and it was kind of fun to see at the jam session how that flow happens, like as just a folkloric process, but also just like thinking about this con as like a music and video game based con, but like there's a lot of musical living that I think happens here in more and less ways and in different ways, and I just think that this is a really cool. I don't know what else you've observed. Maybe some musical living here.
I'm always listening, so there's music everywhere at this thing, right? And some of it's being made by people, some of it's coming out of machines. I mean, we're in the arcade space.
That's
right?
my favorite.
Sound,
the
people
sound.
playing video games, especially the games I grew up with. You know, they're very
like banging down. Now it's all like little computer clicks that sound really nice, ASMR style.
Very different vibe, right? And I think on that level, and my interest in why I came to both folklore and ethnomusicology is I've been involved with music my whole life, effectively, right? And I've played music for a long time too. So it's kind of being able to talk to people who are into making music or really engaging with music is always exciting to me. Because it's something I share personally. It's not just some academic interest I have, right? It's very much a lived interest. So.
Hell yeah! I love that folklore makes space for blending that.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of like areas of thinking don't let you blend
I almost
it so
went to
seamlessly.
anthropology graduate school, and I'm glad I didn't.
Boo! Sorry, we like anthropology. Just kidding. We love anthropology.
It's like a family
They just don't get enough. Folklorists don't get enough of a good rap as being cousins. We got some funsy questions for you. Are you ready for some rapid fire funsy questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, first off, tell us about birthday donuts. When did this tradition start?
So in my family, my four family is as our youngest daughter calls it. So it's myself, my wife, and our two kids.
Say four family?
Four family.
Oh, I love that.
That's what she calls us.
2.5
family. We were living in Eugene, Oregon for a long time. That's where
we met.
It was just one day. It was one of the kids' birthday, I think, and I just ran out and got donuts. And then that started a tradition on each person's birthday we get donuts.
Instead of no cake, only donuts.
No, it's donuts, and then you pile them up on the plate, and you put candles in it. And then whoever's birthday it is gets led out of their room, with their eyes closed by someone. I mean, the funny thing is that since I'm usually the one who will get up at 6 in the morning and go get fresh donuts, no one else in the family will do that. So on my birthday. I usually get donuts that are bought the day before.
I see.
But I still appreciate it. Yeah, so it's a family tradition. I mean, we I don't know.
Yeah.
None of us,
little family
Lisa nor I grew up with that as something in our, families we grew up in, but we created that. And so even to this day, like both our kids are away now, we'll send donuts to them. Because now you can do that with Uber Eats, right? Wherever they are.
Send them donuts.
Or get in touch with their friends and have their friends go get them donuts. So
Hell yeah. You reminded me of the word familect. It's a fun word I heard recently, which is like the way that your own family unit or close like roommate experienced you. There are things that you say to each other that are the same that nobody else gets. Like when you start like making sounds to each other and you also make sounds back. That's like familect.
This
right?
is based
like,
off
we have a lot of that.
This is like accent, dialect, familect.
Idiolect is like a one person. Like someone who says ideal, but instead of idea, but no one else in their family or region says that. Yeah.
Anyway.
I had a friend
cool.
like that.
Birthday donuts. Hell yeah. Donuts. Family folklore. All right, next one.
And it's a tradition that's in the public domain, so anyone can.
Yes. Public domain.
All tradition is just something someone started doing one time.
Yeah. Yes. Birthday donuts.
Let's go.
All right.
Last funsy for you. John, why are there no Thanksgiving songs?
That's a good question.
Thank you, sleuths.
Except the band I was in wrote a Thanksgiving song called That's Why There's No Thanksgiving Songs. It's available on Bandcamp. I haven't put it on Spotify yet.
Wait, what's your band called?
This band was called Hot Dignity.
Nice, nice.
With an exclamation point. That's necessary.
Hot Dignity.
And what do you play?
I play guitar in
Hell
that band, yeah. And then we turned it into Belongers. That was when we got a drummer.
Dang.
But the Thanksgiving
less
song, I recommend
dignified or
it.
what?
We listen to it every year on Thanksgiving. It's
Nice.
What all instruments do you play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me, guitar mostly, banjo a little bit, bass. I can make sounds come out of a trumpet.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's more skill.
And other wind instruments of that ilk.
That genre.
I will try to play any instrument though. I don't really have a lot of fear about instruments.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
Well, that is
I'm not good
our
at any of them, though.
formally crafted questions for John, but we would love for the audience, if you have any questions for John or for us, Deathlorist has mag points for questions and has a microphone.
Mod
so
is in the
the
chat.
mod is in the chat and ready to take questions.
Hey there.
Hey.
I was wondering if anybody in your field is looking at how older songs become viral on TikTok and affect newer generations and the context that they get for that kind of stuff. Compared to, because there's a difference between, I read this I saw this on the TV, or it was like Woodstock or something, but how that kind of changes as it goes throughout culture.
Yeah, like Superman. Completely new context on TikTok, yeah.
There, I can think of a couple examples. So there are people who are studying music and music remixing on TikTok or Reels or whatever, things like that. I can think of in Toke Thompson's Post-Human Folklore. There's a book chapter that I have students read that's all about beatboxing and remixing music as a kind of global music genre that's emergent, because in beatboxing you're using the human instrument to mimic the sounds of technology in a way, and then the remixing piece is taking that kind of like songs that are seemingly unrelated genres and mashing them together, mashups basically, remixes and mashups, and that those are super accessible to people who have computers or other kinds of sound technology globally, not everywhere in the world, but I think that's a really interesting global genre. So there are some people who are studying that. I mean, of course, the, Wellerman song blew up, broke every folklorist's mind for a little while on the internet. That was pretty intense. And so some people study the way that the internet or the computer amplifies the pace of changing culture as opposed to generating new ones, or vice versa. I don't know. They kind of intermingle, but yeah, there are some people. If you're interested, we can provide you some contacts or some links if you're ever want a source or whatever.
And I would add that ethnomusicologists and folklorists are always interested to some extent in the community or affinity groups that gather around things, and TikTok and introduction of songs, old songs, into new communities is a dynamic that I've heard people talking about at conferences and whatnot. So there's definitely that. Speaking of what was it, Familect?
Oh, Familect, yeah.
So my kids are always on TikTok, and I've never actually looked at anything on TikTok unless they send it to me. But of course they'll come in and be like, oh, guess what I learned today? And Lisa, my wife, and I will look at them and be like, did you learn it on TikTok? Because that's where they're learning everything, right? And it's cool, but it's a family joke too.
Yeah, so did you learn on TikTok?
I only look at TikTok,
Learn on TikTok?
when they end up on Reels and Instagram. That's the joke with my kids.
Did you get some mag bucks for that?
I did.
Yeah,
Nice.
hell yeah.
Thanks,
Hell yeah.
Mods.
Thanks.
I
Yeah. Okay, we
Who
got.
else has a question?
Deathlorist gets to be.
Yeah, put one to the
And
side.
there was
Yeah.
in the middle of the room, Caitlin. They had
Yeah.
their hand
I think
up
that the person-
I
early
saw
on, yeah.
this hand come up and then this one,
Okay.
and then
I think blue shirt in the middle had a hand up earlier who
Yeah.
wanted to ask a question
No,
too.
go straight
Oh no. The wave. Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Don't, I'm only calling you out because I saw your
From
hand
early
way
on, yeah,
earlier.
we
I
don't
just
wanna-
want to make
we
sure.
don't wanna lose
Yeah.
the thread.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm wondering, with the way that video game hardware, both games and consoles, degrade over time, they're not made to last forever. If the Library of Congress is preserving them, what technology and what techniques do they use in the same way that, books are kept in bags and use special covers?
That's a great question, and there's multiple answers to it. A lot of it is actually found in that resource list. But
resource list has 2 different webinars on that subject too, so they might have more details.
so with the hardware specifically, we have at the National Audiovisual Conservation Center, which is in Culpeper, Virginia. It's part of the Library of Congress. It's one of our non-Capitol Hill buildings. There's technicians out there who know how to repair many machines, whether they're legacy audio playback machines or video playback machines. And I think they're also working on the consoles or the general machines that they have to be able to play specific video games, is to make sure they maintain them. Sometimes with most physical media and media players, it's a losing battle, right? The things are, we're reaching a cliff, especially with repairing machines that we use for preservation. Just the parts aren't available or the technology is sold. So with audio and moving image carriers, they digitize the stuff as best they can to preserve it. Before it was putting it to real tape, and now it's going to digital. I'm not sure what they do with video game, like the cartridges themselves, if they can extract it from that media carrier and put it into a package that then is a digital preservation copy. I do believe one of the blog posts talks about that.
I think it does. Yeah, I think
but,
there was something
but
about
it's part magic and part science.
Yeah. More questions.
Where am I going next?
You over here and then across.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was curious about, I've noticed the word lore kind of moving its way into common parlance amongst, the young folk. Mm-hmm. And the other day I saw a really salty post where somebody was like, can we stop using the word lore? Like, it doesn't mean what you think it means. But the definition that you gave for folklore earlier was much more expansive than I had previously thought of. And so I kind of was just curious, what would your response be to somebody who was bitching and moaning about the word lore?
Well,
get a life.
Honestly, a little bit. I would say that most people who study folklore, at least study folklore in a sense that's a little, more directed than just like experiencing and just consume. I don't know. If you go to take a folklore class or something at school, most of those people are anti-gatekeeping, like completely. Yeah. Like they want you to be part of it. My thought about that you're making me think about, I don't know, this is like one of my Daisy Dream Brain moments, but I have been noticing, we love the memes about lore, like my lore, my deep lore, like that kind of stuff, or like that's my lore, or like whatever. But it is kind of like divorcing the folk from it, which I think a lot of people tend to fixate on the thing of folklore outside of the community context. And so, at least for us, when we think about folklore, I'm always like telling my students, or I'm always trying to remember, like, okay, so who did it come from? They'll say they'll say something like, is Star Wars folklore? And I want to say like, what's the folk? What's the lore? Like, who are you talking about? Like, so for me, if somebody said, is Star Wars folklore? I would probably say no, if they're only talking about the basic text of the film series or whatever. But all the costuming, all of the community participation, the
Hatsune Miku Boba Fett is folklore.
Hatsune Miku Boba Fett is folklore. So I think, and then when people start asking, like, is this folklore or not, I always want to come back to the people. So, like, I think those memes are really funny. And I like them. Like, I like thinking about like my lore or like the lore of Folkwise. But I think when you really want to study it like academically, you got to ask like who are you talking about? Because there's like folklore of the director film set. Like they are a community that may have lore in Star Wars that influence production. We all love
Faster and More Intense.
Yeah,
that's
Faster
like
and More
from the set folklore from the set of Star Wars. That was like every time they did a take, they'd go Faster and More Intense.
Or like or the audio clip of the or whatever, right? Like
the Wilhelm scream.
The Wilhelm scream. That is
yeah.
kind of had its own culture around it. So like why? So this is why I say like, okay, what do you mean is Star Wars folklore? So I guess you can start asking that question. So, but that person who's saying like lore doesn't mean what you think it means, I think needs to get a life.
Well, let me expand on my answer.
Yeah.
I mean, the term itself is a complicated and problematic term, right? It was initially hyphenated in 1886 or whenever. 46. Yeah, I don't even know the intellectual history of it. But it was hyphenated because it was about the people and the stuff. The stuff was usually verbal
the people
culture
and the
at
stuff.
that time.
Yeah.
And so there was, and then someone removed the hyphen at a certain point. But there is a lot of precious feeling around the term, but it's also a complicated term because no one really knows what it means other than folklorist.
Yeah.
And but what else are we going to call it? The discipline of creative.
I think we should
expression in
I think
everyday
we
life.
should go
It's-
go full back popular antiquities. I think
that
is
was-
having.
No,
Just
no,
kidding.
no,
Just kidding.
no,
Just
no.
kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
but also
Just
like
kidding.
I mean the example you bring up was made me think of like when Ms. Swift named her record Folklore. And folklorists lost their
busy
mind.
on the
Folklorists
internet.
lost their. They lost their mind.
Because the hashtag on what was then
Oh
called
yeah, the
Twitter,
hashtag was trademarked.
had a trademark after it.
And the folklorists felt
'Cause-
very
'cause,
sad about
yeah,
that.
they
And
felt like
we were like,
Taylor
no,
was
this
taking
is
something from us. And I'm
This
like,
is an opportunity. What do you?
It was a weird colonialist mindset, I think.
really
about, like,
kinda
we
is,
own
yeah.
that concept. Like,
No,
fuck
we do
no, we
not,
don't.
please.
So I mean,
Please.
it's up to people,
Yeah.
right? It's like the stuff we're interested in as either academic or public sector, folklorists is what people do.
Yeah.
That's what we're interested in. So, but the gatekeeping, it's just a funny thing. I mean, I don't know. It happens
I don't
around
know.
so
I
many
think,
things.
yeah, and maybe if it's around a particular game or podcast or concept or whatever that uses lore, like I get whatever. Yeah, okay, I'm using it wrong because I'm not referring to the video game. Like I don't know. It's a word. It's just a word.
Yeah, it's a weird, complicated problem that the discipline has.
Can we actually get like more mag books for that question? I think
Yeah,
that was a
pretty
really good one.
That was a really good question. Yeah.
And honestly,
others, yeah.
Taylor Swift folklore is how we started posting videos.
Yeah, we were like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
someone must say something.
somebody has to say something. And we were like, yeah, go.
We got
go
like
Taylor
5
Swift.
minutes left. How many questions? do you
Yeah,
think
we got a couple, and then we'll be here for a second too. We
thank
can
you.
keep answering, but
I
yeah.
guess 2 real quick questions. One,
Okay.
I was an anthropology major. What's the difference between cultural anthropology and folklore?
That's a great question, honestly.
And what was the most surprising thing you saw at MAGFest? And as someone who hadn't been before and didn't really know the culture.
Start
I'll
with that
think
one.
about that while I answer your first question.
Okay.
Cultural anthropology is usually, historically, the discipline or that field of the discipline is not interested in artistic expressions. Folklorists have always been interested in artistic expressions, whether it's storytelling or jokes or music or, cultural anthropologists tend to be interested in cultural frameworks of meaning for sure, and a lot of sort of, you think of the sort of, what are those charts called where they chart out the family and who's related to who?
Oh, like genealogy
Kinship
charts?
charts.
Oh, kinship
Kinship.
charts, yeah.
Like that,
yeah.
That's I was an anthropology undergrad, so it's
Same.
a lot of that, but certainly the intersection is, or the Venn diagram here would be, we're interested in meaning making, but anthropologists tend to be interested in how that happens through social structures and interactions between people outside of an artistic zone. So anthropologists might be interested in the pot making tradition of a group, but they're not necessarily interested in the creative expression that goes into making a pot. It's like the fact of the pot and the fact that it means something for the identity of the maker or the moiety or the clan.
Yeah.
All these anthropology terms are coming back
Yeah.
into my word.
Man,
my
you
head.
need some mag books for that word.
The most surprising thing I've seen. I know this is going to sound terrible, but there's like all these police officers here.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
John literally did
What's
say,
up
is he? John was like, is he cosplaying Prince George's County Police?
I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah,
seem
it's
like
true.
a very violent place. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't
But
know. Yeah.
I mean, I think some of the elaborate costumes have surprised me because it's like such dedication.
Some of the size
Yeah, the
of
size
the
of
costumes
things.
too.
They're just like-
So- yeah,
Yeah, there's just some amazing stuff
our
that has
guy
surprised
left,
me in all
but-
the very good ways.
Yeah, that's good. Both of those, I have no notes. Next question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe over
we got
here.
one,
Oh, we
yeah,
going
yeah,
back. Okay, cool.
Sorry, I was right here.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things that you said earlier clicked with something that I had observed with the students. We work at Carleton College, and the students that we work with. You talked about the speeding up of change, but one of the things that I feel like I have noticed is a distinct slowing down of the loss of fandom, especially in music and partly in video games, because it occurred to me that when they talk about oldies, for me that was the early 70s and late 60s of my parents.
Yeah.
But they're talking about oldies that for me would have been World War II big band.
Yep. Yep.
And
Sometimes
just
that
wondering
happens,
if you
So
could,
there's a different kind of longitudinal looking back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and wonder if you would just talk a little bit about the juxtaposition or the interesting, it's not a contradiction, but it's interesting that those two sort of opposing things are happening at the same time for some of the same reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, because in that, like, well, one understanding of time is it's linear, right? So we can look back, and that's back so many years. The meaning-making frames that culture, I'm trying to think how best to phrase this. The meaning-making around time and the value of stuff, it's cyclical, right? But those cycles change pace, right? So, there's like a nostalgia for the 80s, and now there's nostalgia for the 90s, but there's also people who are younger, too young to be nostalgic for something like that, are looking back beyond that. So and I think some of it is how things get shared in social media, right? It's a pacing that we're in the middle of right now. Yeah. Right, so it's hard to look back and say, oh, that's why it works like that, because we might not ever know that. So there's a kind of weird tension between the linearity of time and then the cyclical nature of how culture and meaning happens through sharing of stuff and reinvestment in meaning of something that's an oldie, right?
Thinking about like, fly me to the moon, da, 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 da. Just as an example of that a little bit, and how it gets like remixed and changed up as though it's brand new, and it's like, why did that end up in Bayonetta? Like, what's happening there, or like what's happening like
because of a good musical director.
Well, yeah, but also like what's happening in like a Japanese like interpretation or recontextualization of that too, or just like even the video game, like company or whatever. What are the workers thinking about? Do they care? Who is just making those decisions? Like all of those could be questions a folklorist could ask about that. So I think I don't know. There's not really an answer, but I do think those are interesting observations. Yeah. We have time for one more. We have 1 minute, I think. 1 minute. That's it.
Last one.
Joy, you can ask us after. Here, sorry.
Direct access to
and then we'll have to officially end it. I don't know we may have a little bit more wiggle room because I think the panel after us got extended to later or something, but anyway.
But still.
Go ahead.
So I recently visited the Smithsonian last week, and one of my favorite exhibits there was about how there's a constellation or group of stars, and how different groups across the world all developed separate mythologies for the same. It was the Seven Sisters. There's a Greek story, a Japanese story, the Maori people. So I was just curious if you had any thoughts about that, or just any interesting examples of, despite geographically separated regions, they all have the same cultural
Dom's got
thoughts
this one.
about them.
Myth Guy's got this one.
Yeah, this is kind of like my master thesis. I think there are some things that you could plot points of like who has what element in what story, and put pins in a map and see how they change. You'd be like, okay, they said it's a flood here, and this the god in the sky is responsible, and one person survives, and a family survives a little farther west, and like two people survive a little farther south, whatever. And there are some things, especially when you get into those myths, that are just like so ingrained into like the sensory experience of being on the planet that okay, yeah, people in New Zealand and in Greece both have like a very similar like fire story. And is that because anyone in New Zealand and Greece ever met each other, or is it just because people be staring at fire since we evolved the eyes, and we're all going to eventually get to very similar fire things? So I think we call those two processes. The first one diffusion, where you can kind of trace how it diffuses from one, imagine one source and how it spreads out, or polygenesis, the other thing, where you're just okay, maybe the way people's brains work, we're just going to unrelated people are going to see similar things and come up with similar ways to narrativize it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things that people like to do is make meaning of something and understand something. Yeah. Animals may do that too. They just don't know how to tell us.
Yeah, they haven't told us.
Hey, don't put that on them.
Waiting on whales. We don't
know how to receive
don't
what
put that on them. Telling us. That's what my dissertation's about.
But I think it's that idea that people are gonna be looking up in the sky and be like, oh yeah, there's 7 stars close together. That must mean something.
Mm-hmm. The 7 is an important number, and then there's 7 of this and 7 of that, and you want to make meaning, you want to make patterns, there's different ways to.
Love to notice 7.
Yeah, there's different. Lots of numbers: 12, 13, 7, 3, 2, 1. All of them are important. Anyway. I think we are officially out of time. If you have more questions, we'll be around for a little bit. You can come up here, but thank you all. Academy ladders in the chat for you all. Thank you.
And one more time for John.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for
Tom,
being here.
Daisy,
Thank you.
Caitlin.
Can we do a selfie?
Yeah, let's do a selfie. Yes. Let's do it. This is folklore. This is the selfie, the panel folklore selfie. Yeah.
Caitlin's right there.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.